Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Pan Future Podcast. Today is Saturday, December 16th, 2017. I don't have any particular rant to share with you off the top of the show this week. I'll save the ranting for a little later. But anyway, let's get right to the news of the moment. Oh, hey, look at that. You didn't have to wait too long for that rant. The CDC has received a list of prohibited words from the Trump administration, and the Trump administration's march toward authoritarianism continues unabated, and it is a topic I think is not getting enough coverage. The mainstream media is still treating this as if it's a typical, slightly unusual left versus right, GOP versus Democrats, establishment versus mavericks kind of a thing. It is not. It is different. Trump would like to be king. Anyway, the administration is prohibiting officials at the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, the nation's top public health agency, from using 7 words or phrases in official documents prepared for next year's budget. These words include vulnerable, entitlement, diversity, transgender, fetus, evidence-based, and science-based. And this directive from the administration is beyond idiotic. It makes me want to hit my head on my desk, but I won't because I will hit it so hard I will kill myself. That's all I can say. I mean, really, what else? This is Orwellian. It is beyond belief how Orwellian this kind of thing is. And not just metaphorically, it's very literally this. I wish George Orwell could come back from the dead and tell everybody that he wasn't writing a manual. He was writing a warning. And we did not heed that warning. So write your senators, call their offices, call your representatives. This is beyond the pale when it comes to both just the completely unscientific nature of this government now and the blatant attacks on truth and a complete erosion of any sense of real democracy that we had. Let's move on. I almost went with my usual outer space bumper there, but not quite. It would be somewhat appropriate. And in somewhat lighter news, you can celebrate today, December 16th, as the 100th birthday of Arthur C Clarke, one of the greatest science fiction writers ever, one of the progenitors of the genre. Would have been 100 years old, and good for him. He actually made it to 90, so had a very long and filled life with not just science fiction, but actual science and undersea exploration. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to the Clarke Foundation website, to his biography there. You should read it. It's very interesting. And also check out the Clarke Foundation and see the work for the future of humanity that they are continuing in his name. So Arthur C Clarke, happy 100th birthday. And that's the news of the moment. On to the main segment for this week. Some of you may have noticed I ended the Patreon account that I had set up for the podcast. It wasn't really going anywhere, and it was further dividing my attention. You can still make donations on the main website if you want, but there will not be any subscription offered. In light of this change, I am going to share with you some of the Patreon newsletters I produced in the months that I was using the service. I also want to let you know that the show will be taking a short break with the upcoming holidays. I plan to be back with new shows on January 6th. One of the ideas I had when I started the podcast was that I would take a hopeful tone. It's easy to be dour and depressed, and frankly, that's sort of my natural state. One of the podcasts I model my show after is the Skeptoid podcast by Brian Dunning. In it, he takes on all sorts of woo and pseudoscience, urban legends, and crank ideas. But rather than just smashing them down, he examines what is really going on and leads you to marvel at how cool the real world is. Stones sliding across the desert? Not aliens, but something with a rational explanation that is just really interesting to understand. I want you to look toward the future and be hopeful. It's hard, I know, not only because of events going on in the world, but because of the likelihood that none of us will be alive when the real fulfillment of all this science and technology comes to fruition. From Nelson Henderson, this famous quote, "The true meaning of life is to plant trees under whose shade you do not expect to sit." That's the heart of long-term thinking. Everything that has happened and that will happen are small steps in a very long journey. We can each make only a few of those steps ourselves, but that is no reason to think that we shouldn't take those steps at all. Not all solutions are perfect. Not every goal can be achieved by one person in one lifetime. But moving forward, taking some action, is better than none at all. Maybe the latest medical treatment has only been tested on some mice, but it shows promise. Maybe the new carbon nanotube manufacturing process still can't make a space elevator, but it's still a lot better than it was yesterday. The very nature of science requires long-term thinking. Gravitational waves were first observed in 2015, 99 years after Einstein predicted them. The earliest gravitational wave hypothesis goes all the way back to 1893. The scientists making these predictions are long gone, yet others took up their work. We need more science that everyone can see. Many people support science in some way, but not everyone gets to participate in doing or seeing stuff that's just cool. I witnessed the eclipse on August 21st this year, and I was fortunate enough to get into the path of totality. Eclipses are cool no matter what, but I highly encourage you to get yourself into the path of the next one. There will be another in the United States in 2024, so we don't have to wait long. To experience totality in person is unlike anything I have ever seen. And hearteningly, is that a word? I shared this in a parking lot with a bunch of strangers, and I felt joy when everyone cheered. It didn't matter who we were, where we were from, or what we believed, or what we did for a living. We just shared an amazing moment together as humans. Do you have a long-term goal? I mean, not something like a project or a career goal. Something you want to experience when you're old. Something you can keep in the back of your mind for all the years between now and then. Something that falls firmly into the long-term thinking category. If we can't live 1,000 or 10,000 years, push your mind out as far as you can. I came up with a longer-term goal for myself about a year ago. I want to see Halley's Comet again. The comet last visited the inner solar system in 1986. I was 10 years old. It is expected to return about 44 years from now in 2061. I will be 85 years old. I don't have kids, so I won't have grandkids either. I don't, at the moment, have some large business to pass on or legacy to leave, other than whomever might remember my music or the podcast. So this thing, this ball of ice and dust, drifting through time, is a focal point for the back end of my life, and something that keeps reminding me to try, to keep going, to take care of myself, and to always look to the stars. All right, thank you so much for joining me for this little essay today. My attempt to remind myself from time to time to keep a long-term perspective, and maybe you can do the same. If you want to check things out that I talked about today, come to the website, panfuture.org. I will link to some Arthur C Clarke information and the CDC news. No specific thing to link to about my little essay there. But once again, the Patreon is no more, but if you do want to support the show, there's a link for a one-time donation on the website there. Also, links on the website go to the Twitter and the Facebook feeds and the YouTube page and all that stuff. And as always, thank you so much for joining me. And I guess after a couple weeks off for the holidays, I hope all of you have a wonderful holiday season, doing whatever it is you do, whether it's celebrating specific traditions or just having some time off work or hanging out with some friends you don't get to see very often. Enjoy that time that you are spending doing whatever it is you are doing. The show will be back in a few weeks, and as always, I will talk to you again in the future.
In the main A. Okay, that's complete. Okay, both DMC, power to SPG. You can get it down.
Go and throttle up.
All computers now have primary control of critical vehicle function. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Roger. What's your open target shot now, Frank? 31
Endeavor supporting the spacewalk.
I'd also like to delete the profile power up and make this thing go 14 days. We may cancel that power up, as I told you, depending on how Section 2 is looking at that time. In case we keep the array open at this time, we also keep the array open.
Search for one speck of light to find. What